That Elizabeth starts now.
All right, count your lucky stars. It's taken 9 months, but finally, in the next hour, a crew of international astronauts will blast off in a SpaceX Dragon capsule from Kennedy Space Center in Florida. They will travel to the International Space Station to finally bring home those two NASA astronauts who've been stranded up there since last June. We're counting down live and bringing you the latest, and we'll have the liftoff live on this show. I'm Elizabeth Vargas, and America's News starts right now.
Tonight, the countdown is on to a golden hour liftoff at Cape Canaveral. Two stranded astronauts could finally get a ride home to Earth. We'll bring you that rocket launch live. Then, a Syrian college student arrested and slated for deportation for his role in anti-Israel college protests and for handing out pro-Hamas flyers.
It simply cannot be the case that you can be disappeared at night off the streets of New York City simply because the current U.S. government, the current administration at the White House dislikes what you have to say.
No one has a right to a student visa. No one has a right to a green card, by the way.
But is that enough to kick out a green card holder? And what happened to free speech? And later, the search for a college student who vanished in the Dominican Republic. Is there or is there not a person of interest? As a special search operation in the ocean is now underway. We're talking to a former FBI diver about what that entails.
All right, great to have everybody with us tonight. We start tonight as we keep an eye on that rocket launch. We're starting with a fiery legal battle that has been pitting the nation's First Amendment right to free speech against the Trump administration's hardline stand against students protesting Israel. Now, at the center of it all is this man, Columbia University grad student Mahmoud Khalil, a 30-year-old pro-Palestinian who led pro-Palestinian protests at Columbia University last year. Now, tonight, Khalil is in a detention center in Louisiana after ICE agents arrested him Saturday night at his campus housing in New York City. Khalil was detained after the Department of Homeland Security accused him of leading activities aligned to Hamas, a designated terrorist organization. Khalil was born in Syria. He has Palestinian family. He is a legal permanent resident of the United States. He's here on a green card, and he denies this charge. He says he's being targeted for speaking out on Palestinian rights. Today, Khalil's arrest sparked protests outside a federal courthouse in Manhattan.
If you say how, we want justice. You say how, hands off my students now.
In court, Khalil's attorneys asked a judge to return him to New York. They say there's no evidence that he provided support of any kind to any terrorist organization.
The United States government has taken the position that it can arrest, detain, and seek to deport a lawful permanent resident exclusively because of his peaceful, constitutionally protected activism. In this case, activism in support of Palestinian human rights and an end to the genocide in Gaza. It's largely unprecedented, save for ugly historical precedents, including in the Red Scare and McCarthyism.
Now, President Trump on the campaign trail and since his election has taken a very hard line against the students leading these sometimes violent protests on college campuses. And when asked why Khalil was arrested, Trump spokesman Carolyn Leavitt said he organized protests, harassed fellow students, and passed out flyers.
This is an individual who organized group protests that not only disrupted college campus classes and harassed Jewish American students and made them feel unsafe on their own college campus, but also distributed pro-Hamas propaganda, flyers with the logo of Hamas.
Now, in this country, there is a First Amendment right to free speech, even free speech that is ugly and aberrant. Passing out pro-Hamas flyers isn't much different from marching with tiki torches and chanting, "Jews will not replace us." It's all awful, and it's all protected speech. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, however, said that Khalil's case is different.
This is not about free speech. This is about people that don't have a right to be in the United States to begin with. No one has a right to a student visa. No one has a right to a green card, by the way. These lunatics are running around with covers on their face, screaming terrifying things. If you told us that's what you intended to do when you came to America, we would have never let you in.
All right, for more on all this, let's bring in the mayor of New York City, Bill de Blasio, and Ronna McDaniel, former chair of the Republican National Committee. Mayor de Blasio, I'm going to start with you. The vast majority of cases where somebody with a green card has found that green card revoked, they've committed a crime. And in this case, the Trump administration hasn't even accused him of a crime.
Yeah, Elizabeth, anyone who cares about American liberties, and you don't care if you're conservative or you're liberal, whatever you are, you should be very worried when you see the United States government arresting someone because of their political beliefs, because they exercise free speech. The Supreme Court has addressed this issue repeatedly. If you have a green card, you have rights like any American, the right to free speech that the founders put in our Constitution. Now, I'm someone who believes in the state of Israel strongly, and I think some of what happened in these protests, I'm not talking about this individual, some of the protests were violent, some of the protests were absolutely inappropriate in the way that Jewish
and
students
illegal.
were treated.
They were taking over buildings and barricading them.
And that should not happen. And it's up to universities to do something about that, working with local law enforcement. But that's a very different matter than a guy who, by the accounts I've seen, was actually a mediator trying to resolve the protests with the university administration, who didn't do anything violent and was exercising his right to free speech, who actually said there was no place for anti-Semitism in the movement that he was a part of. So this is about American liberties. It's a very slippery slope. And I think there's a lot of people out there, including people who voted for Donald Trump, who are looking at this and saying, wait a minute, that's not what I signed up for.
Yeah, Ann Coulter was one of the leading Republican voices who criticized this move. Ronna, so far the Trump administration has just said that Khalil engaged in protests that a lot of people find repellent. Don't they have to come up with something more than he passed out some flyers with a Hamas logo on it to kick him out of the country?
Well, the one thing he will be provided is due process. The government does have to prove their case. He does get his day in court. He is not a U.S. citizen, so he's not afforded the same rights. But I do think the fact that Hamas is a designated terrorist organization, they are anti-Semitic. He was passing out pro-terrorist propaganda, has brought us to this place. And I think Marco Rubio has said this is not about freedom of speech. This is about your right to be in this country if you are going to perpetuate terrorism. And let's not forget, there are still Americans being held hostage by Hamas right now. Hamas is still acting as a terrorist organization. And so Marco Rubio and the Trump administration is saying you do not have a right to be in our country if you are going to support terrorist organizations that are persecuting American citizens.
You know, the Immigration and Nationality Act says that Marco Rubio, as Secretary of State, can deport anybody who, quote, poses a serious adverse foreign policy consequence. What foreign policy consequences and threats to it does this student represent?
Well, I think it's egregious to be supporting Hamas. I think if you were handing out flyers saying pro-ISIS or pro-Al-Qaeda after 9/11, when we have American hostages still being held, when we have families that are still suffering from the loss of loved ones, when we saw what happened with Israel, when we see the spread of anti-Semitism, when we see students on Columbia University afraid to go to class, this is a problem. And this isn't about free speech. This is about you coming to our country and pushing a terrorist ideology. And that doesn't give you the right to necessarily stay in the United States, but he's still going to get his day in court, and the president and the government is still going to have to prove their case.
Can I just jump in? Ronna, have you seen these flyers that you allege he gave out? There's no coverage I've seen that actually shows any documentary evidence this guy did that. And I would think you would be concerned that our government is arresting someone without that evidence, someone who is literally on the path to citizenship in this country and is peacefully protesting. Doesn't that worry you that that goes against what our Constitution is about?
Well, Mayor, the fact that he's going to get due process, the fact that the government has to prove their case shows that he's going to get that.
But wait, you're saying anyone could get arrested because someone said they had a flyer, even if there's no evidence they had a flyer?
They're going to have to produce that evidence. I don't know what the government has. You certainly don't, but they certainly have said we feel confident enough in our case to bring these charges and to view this person as somebody who is pushing pro-terrorist, a designated terrorist organization. And I would ask you, Mayor, aren't you concerned with foreign citizens coming to this country, taking advantage of our freedoms, our universities, our education, and then pushing propaganda for an organization that is still holding American hostages.
Look, I oppose Hamas deeply, and I represented the city with the largest Jewish population on earth when I was mayor.
I know.
But I got to say something to you. I don't think a lot of the people who are supporters of Donald Trump would accept the notion that someone could be arrested on say-so, on someone say-so, on no evidence whatsoever. That's not the America that people who believe in liberty want to see.
Ronna, I do have to say...
He's going to court. Yeah, they're going to have to prove evidence. They're going to show it.
Right, but in the meantime, he's sitting in another state in a detention facility. And a right-wing group that tracks these protesters and has files on all of them and has a file on Khalil says that the file has no examples of Khalil using threatening or violent speech. It shows that he was advocating for divestment from Israel, which means removing and, they wanted Colombia to pull all funds from Israel.
Well, the White House has said they do have these flyers, that this is why this happened, that there was pro-Hamas propaganda being put forward by Khalil. So we will see. But what I do think is important, if you are coming to the United States of America and you want to be under this umbrella of this great country and you want to get educated here, you should not be coming and pushing terrorist propaganda. And you should know that if you do that, you probably wouldn't be allowed to enter into our country, but there will be consequences.
Mayor, the ACLU calls this one of, if not the biggest threat to free speech in 50 years. Do you think that's hyperbole?
No, I think this is a profoundly troubling moment, and it's different than some of the other things we've seen. It does feel like McCarthyism when accusation leads to arrest, leads to someone being held without their liberty who is already on the pathway to American citizenship. There's something profoundly wrong here. But I'll tell you, not only do I disagree profoundly with Hamas, I disagree with the divestment movement. BDS, I've opposed them all along. Mm-hmm. But if someone is peacefully protesting, if someone says, hey, I believe this is the right thing to do, that's an American right. Of course, I don't want someone coming from another country trying to do violence in this country. That's a different matter entirely. With all due respect to Ronna, that would be a different case. We're talking about someone exercising American freedoms who is on his way to being an American citizen. What happens next?
Well, and by
what
the way,
happens next? Then are U.S. citizens going to suffer the same fate?
Immigration and Customs Enforcement under the first Trump administration determined that people who are here on green cards do have a right to free speech.
And the Supreme Court said as well.
And it's not just American citizens who have a right to free speech. Ronna, I do want to ask you, switching gears entirely, about a set of new polls out today showing that 56% of Americans now disapprove of Trump's handling of the economy, 61% disapprove of his tariffs. The conservative Wall Street Journal came out with a scathing editorial today saying the trouble with trade wars is that once they begin, they can quickly escalate and get out of control. All the more so when Mr. Trump behaves as if his manhood is implicated because a foreign nation won't take his nasty border taxes lying down. We said from the beginning that this Northern American trade war is the dumbest in history, and we were being kind. Got to get your reaction to that.
Well, I think we had some good economic news today with inflation going down. You're seeing the price of eggs going down. We are not even 2 months into this administration. The interview I found very interesting this weekend was from my state of Michigan, Sean Fain, the head of the UAW, who talked about the fact that many of these trade deals have cost American jobs, American manufacturing jobs, and lowered the wages of working class Americans. And so that is a Democrat base. That is a person who supported Kamala Harris saying he supports pushing for better trade deals and better deals that will allow wages to go higher for UAW workers. It is interesting to me seeing Democrats go against somebody like Sean Fain when he is out there supporting this and talking about the damage that this has done to my state of Michigan.
I just want to say real quickly, Ronna, I actually agree that some of the trade deals of the past were mistaken, like NAFTA. But I want to be clear. Tariff wars are going to devastate American farmers, American workers, auto workers. Bad news all around. Again, people who voted for Donald Trump are going to say this is not what we signed up for.
All right.
Well, this is where we are now. We'll see where we end up. If we are negotiating to have better trade, fair trade, reciprocal tariffs, if countries are doing this to us and he's saying this isn't fair, I think most Americans should say this should be fair across the board.
All right. Mayor Bill de Blasio, Ronna McDaniel, spirited debate. And it was great to hear from both of you tonight. Really appreciate it. All right. For those of you at home keeping track on the other side of our screen, wait, we lost our shot. Put it back up. They just called off the launch of this rocket. They're taking off their seatbelts. We're going to tell you what's going on, why it apparently looks like this launch of this SpaceX rocket that was supposed to go up to the International Space Station and finally bring home 2 astronauts has apparently now been scrubbed. The very latest when we come back in 4 minutes.
Where'd you get those shoes? DSW has all the shoes you need for whatever you're into. You know, like running shoes that give new meaning to personal best. Or everyday sneakers that make coffee runs look cool. Basically, DSW has all the best styles from the brands that always get it right. Like Nike, Brooks, Timberland, and more. Oh yeah, did we mention they also happen to be the perfect price? Find a shoe for every you at your DSW store and DSW.com.
What are the highlight projections for this year's Agriculture Department's dairy forecast? USDA dairy analyst Peyton Ferrier at this year's Ag Outlook Forum with the details.
Milk production is expected to grow modestly by 0.4%. That's primarily based on herd growth of 0.4% with a slight growth in yield, that's milk per cow. Milk components, the fats and skim solid percentages are expected to grow. The all milk price is projected to be nearly unchanged at $22.60 per hundredweight. And feed costs, the cost of feed is expected to fall in the coming year.
A breakdown of product price projections for 2025 shows American butter and cheese prices competitive globally, while less competitive prices are expected in the world market this year for U.S. non-fat dry milk and whey. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
Plan on flying? It's time to upgrade to a Real ID. Because in order to board domestic flights, your driver's license or state-issued ID must be a Real ID, or you'll need another acceptable form of identification. So don't wait. Find out how to get your Real ID at tsa.gov/Real ID. That's tsa.gov/Real ID. Or visit your local DMV. And then you'll be cleared for takeoff.
Weeknights, trust NewsNation to bring you the day's events across America, breaking down the issues from all sides with critical analysis that's tough but fair, pursuing the truth in search of justice. Elizabeth Vargas, Chris Cuomo, Leland Vittert, Ashley Banfield. The new primetime on NewsNation.
So what do you say? Let's get after it.
News with respect for all Americans. Weeknights starting at 7 Eastern only on NewsNation. To find NewsNation on your screen, go to newsnationnow.com.
Thanks for listening to NewsNation on the go. I'm Leland Vittert. We're here for you 24/7 on the NewsNation app, or just say, Alexa, play NewsNation.
This is The Making of America from the Jefferson Media Group. During the Civil War, an American balloonist named Thaddeus Lowe convinced President Lincoln to use spy balloons by raising one 500 feet in the air, complete with a telegraph key allowing instant communication with its ground crew. And America's Balloon Corps was born. Both the Union and Confederate forces used them effectively, but both sides abandoned their use for different reasons. Confederate forces lacked enough helium to operate them safely. The North had plenty of helium, and something else, bureaucracy. Union regulations for their use became so restrictive, Lowe found it impossible to deploy the balloons quickly and effectively. So eventually, he stopped trying. This has been The Making of America. I'm Michael Emerson, and you can visit us at jeffersonmediagroup.com.
On your mark, get set, go to Antenna TV.
All together, 1, 2.
Race to your TV to watch your favorite shows.
Well, I shall be running along.
Spend days marathoning one classic after another.
So when you're sharp, everything goes your way.
Feel like a champ while you catch up with your favorite characters.
I'm so good sometimes I scare myself.
Everyone's a winner with
Antenna TV, how it was meant to be.
Get your hands off my trophy.
As a busy mom to 4 kids, my to-do list is full.
Trying to fit in exercise, eating right, and prioritizing self-care can feel next to impossible.
While we can't add more hours to the day, we do have a great resource to help.
Go Red for Women has easy tips, tools, and information to help you and your family live a healthier life.
So to all the moms, the aunts, grandmothers, and amazing women out there doing it all.
Visit goredforwomen.org/momlife today.
You take care of them, Go Red for Women will take care of you.
Following breaking news, NASA and SpaceX are standing down from tonight's planned launch to rescue those 2 astronauts on the International Space Station. This was all supposed to happen about half an hour from now. They literally just announced moments ago it is scrubbed. We saw a video of you can see it right there, of the astronauts who were the replacement crew heading up to the International Space Station to replace the astronauts who were up there. Literally, they took off their seatbelts, and apparently this is off. They were supposed to bring back, this same rocket was supposed to bring back several astronauts, including the 2 astronauts that have been stuck up there for literally 9 months. They thought they were going up for 8 days and ended up staying for 9 months. We have our own NewsNation's Brooke Schaefer, who is at Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Brooke, what happened? Why did they call this all off?
There's still a lot we don't know right now, Elizabeth. We're waiting for some more updates from officials, but we do know at this point that the launch was scrubbed because of what they're saying was a hydraulic ground issue. But as you mentioned, all of this happening as we were inching closer and closer to liftoff. You can see the countdown clock here at the Kennedy Space Center now stopped. We were about T-minus 43 minutes to liftoff here. Again, still a lot of questions left to be answered about exactly why this was scrubbed, but there are already 4 astronauts that are on board that spaceship right now. The next step, of course, will be getting them off of that rocket ship and potentially preparing for this to happen tomorrow. As of right now, the next available opportunity for liftoff is 7:25 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. But as of right now, it's still unclear whether they will take that opportunity. But again, all of this happening really as we were so close to liftoff here at the Kennedy Space Center. We know that those 4 astronauts, they have been sitting in those seats for a couple of hours now. They've been strapped in. Their suits were checked. They were looking at the weather, and we were inching closer to those final pre-launch checks, getting ready to hear a go for launch. And now we're hearing that this launch has been scrubbed for the day. Elizabeth?
Now, if they said the issue was something with the hydraulics, that doesn't sound like they can get that fixed in 24 hours.
That, again, is going to be a big question. How big of an issue was it? Of course, we know that NASA and SpaceX and all of these astronauts and the members in the command control center, they are going to take safety as the top priority. So whenever there is an issue like this, the answer is to scrub it and try again later. Because, again, we've got 4 astronauts already inside that spaceship strapped in. So, of course, the next question is, how long will it take to get this fixed? What kind of a fix is it? There is a possible window for them to launch tomorrow. But again, that will all depend on what kind of a fix it'll take here. But we did just run inside. There's a press center just a few feet away from us. As soon as we heard that the launch was scrubbed, we ran inside there and we've been listening to the live stream of what's happening right now. And they mentioned, this is something that these astronauts prepare for. This is part of space flight. These launches get scrubbed time and time again because everything has to be perfect. So again, the window, there's a potential window tomorrow. We'll see if they take it.
All right, Brooke, let us know if you find anything else. We'll get you back on the air so you can tell us all what you've learned. In the meantime, joining us now is retired astronaut Jose Hernandez. Jose, how often does this happen where you're all seatbelted in for several hours, ready to go in your suit, and they say, never mind?
Oh, Elizabeth, that happens all the time. Space flight is not trivial. It's not routine. Lots of things can go wrong. Right now, we hear it's a ground issue. There's a next opportunity next Thursday. I tell you, I went on our ship twice, suited up, just like these gentlemen are right there, my colleagues. You see them there, all suited up, ready to go. And for some reason, the first time it was weather. Another one was a fuel valve sensor that was gone bad. So this is typical. This is very typical. And, our buddies, our astronauts, Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams have been up there for 8 months, a little over 8 months now. So I think 1 or 2 days is not going to make that much of a difference.
What does this mean when we hear it's a ground hydraulic issue? Do you have any idea what all the different things that might be?
It could be when the rocket takes off, the tower is pulled back, and they probably use hydraulic systems to push something that heavy to tilt it or push it back, and that could be very well something that.
So that sounds minor, though.
Yeah, it's something minor. I don't think it's anything big, and I think they're going to be able to make tomorrow's launch window in the evening.
All right, so we're looking at a live shot of these astronauts. It looks like they're having some fun, relaxing while they get the go-ahead. What happens next? Like, how long do they have to sit there inside this rocket that we now know is not going to be taking off tonight?
Well, SpaceX is a little different than when the shuttles were. I remember when the shuttles were, you wanted to launch because, first of all, you keep yourself hydrated. And, of course, that means pretty soon you're going to need to use the restroom. And when things get canceled, it's only 8.5 minutes up into space, and you could unbuckle and activate the restroom and use the restroom. Whereas if you get grounded like these guys are, you're going to be there for another 2 or 3 hours, and you're holding it, and it's very uncomfortable. So it's almost better off you just launch.
Okay, I think we learned a lot more personal information than maybe we were wondering.
Sure.
Let me ask you something.
You did ask.
Yes, that's, and you will let us know.
Yes.
This has got to be a disappointment for them as well, because you are sort of psyched, not just physically set to go up, but mentally and emotionally. But I want to ask you, Jose, about what Sonny and Butch are facing after nearly 9 months up there in the International Space Station. They thought they were going for 8 days. They ended up for nearly 9 months. Them coming down to Earth, this rocket that's taking these astronauts up is supposed to get them and bring them back home. What is it going to be like for them adjusting to Earth? That is, for astronauts who've been up on the space station for a long time, they have talked about the fact that is a huge transitional phase for them physically, and it can be difficult.
Yes, it is. It is because your body is made for 1G. In the absence of 1G, your muscles start to say, oh, I don't need to be this strong because I'm not walking anymore. So you get what's called muscular atrophy, the weakening of the muscles. And this is why you have this protocol of exercising at least 90 minutes a day in space. Then you also have a bone density loss. You lose about 1% bone density for every month you're up there in space. It recombines when you come home, but you still have to go through this therapy, physical therapy of at least 2 months. Some of the astronauts, I would say most of them that are gone for 3 months or more or up in space for 3 months or more, sometimes can't even walk. They have to be taken out lying down in a bed, in a gurney. And then they slowly but surely get their strength to walk and then, of course, run and those type of things. So it's very, very, a very, very involved physical therapy routine that they have to go through. Now, if you're there just for 14 days like I was, it was no big deal. The only thing I had to readjust is my vestibular balance system.
Yeah, 14 days and 9 months, big difference there.
Very big difference. Very big difference. My hats off to them.
Yeah, I've also heard that astronauts coming back from extended stays on the space station are often dizzy, nauseous for sometimes weeks until their body gets reacclimated.
Yes, I mean, because it's a big change. They've been up there for such a long time. They also have some like eye pressure issues, some ocular issues that happen as well. And of course, they absorb much more radiation than someone who's only up there for 14 days. So you got to watch that as well. The accumulative dosage that an astronaut receives, you can only receive so much and then you're done.
Yeah. All right. Jose Hernandez, always a pleasure talking to you and hearing about your time in space.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth.
Yeah, really. And obviously, we're all disappointed. We thought we were going to see a great liftoff today. Perhaps tomorrow night. We will see. All right. Officials are reviewing and interviewing the man who may be the last person to see that missing college student before she disappeared on spring break in the Dominican Republic. In a moment, I'm going to speak live with a former FBI diver as the search now in the Dominican Republic turns to the ocean. Was she swept out to sea? If so, will they ever find her? Coming up.
Wrinkles, gray hair, and hearing loss are common signs of getting older. But being short of breath, having tightness in your chest, coughing and wheezing are not. If you are experiencing these symptoms, You may be one of the millions of people who are living with a condition called COPD but don't know it. Early diagnosis and treatment can add years of better breathing to your life. For more information, talk to your doctor and visit copdfoundation.org today.
We asked parents who adopted teens to share their journey.
When I met both of them, it was like my missing pieces were found. Like it was just like an instant, these are my kids. If you're considering adopting a teen, just do it. Kids need families. I don't care the age. Everybody deserves a family.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. Visit adoptuskids.org to learn more. A message brought to you by Adopt US Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council.
Every day, women like me go to the doctor for annual checkups for conditions like breast cancer. Early detection saved my life. But women with disabilities face a cruel reality: inaccessible medical facilities and equipment.
I went to a doctor's office I was told was accessible, but when I got there, I couldn't get through the front door.
Our veterans deserve better. Help PVA fight for access at pva.org.
Stand Up to Cancer asked leading cancer researchers to speak about why they do their work.
Two words come to mind for me. One is responsibility. The other is purpose.
It's just so inspiring to do research that impacts human lives.
Stand Up to Cancer has been a critical partner in advancing research for cancer.
Cancer research saves lives.
So please help us fight in this battle against cancer.
Be a part of the team that ends cancer at standuptocancer.org.
You wanted to be cool, which led you to smoking, which led to a pack a day. Then you met that special someone, which led to starting a life with them, which led to wanting to live longer, which led to quitting. Then you heard you may be at risk for lung cancer, which led you to getting a low-dose CT scan. If you smoked, get scanned. Talk to your doctor and learn more at savedbythescan.org. Brought to you by the American Lung Association and the Ad Council.
Ever lose your keys? Is that normal aging, dementia, or something else? Fear often stops us from asking for a simple checkup from the neck up. Knowing your numbers, blood pressure, blood sugar, and cholesterol are common, but your cognitive numbers are also important. Request our free guide. It's filled with tips for better brain health, facts about dementia, and much more. Go to 1-800-DEMENTIA.org or call 1-800-DEMENTIA. Your brain will thank you.
About any flu-like symptoms or vaccines. Liver problems leading to hospitalization may occur when treated for Crohn's or UC.
Ready to get back in the picture? Ask your gastroenterologist how to take control of your Crohn's.
My name is DeMar Hamlin. I play for the Buffalo Bills, and I play safety. CPR saved my life. I've teamed up with the American Heart Association as a national ambassador to help create a nation of lifesavers, turning bystanders into lifesavers through CPR education and access to AEDs. Nearly 3 out of 4 cardiac arrests that don't happen in hospitals happen in homes. Join me to ensure everyone has the chance to live longer, healthier lives. Visit heart.org/nation.
Plan on flying? It's time to upgrade to a real ID. Because in order to board domestic flights, your driver's license or state-issued ID must be a real ID, or you'll need another acceptable form of identification. So don't wait. Find out how to get your real ID at tsa.gov/real ID. That's tsa.gov/real ID. Or visit your local DMV. And then you'll be cleared for takeoff.
Every year, millions of pets go missing, leaving families heartbroken. If you lose or find a pet, Love Lost is here to help. Our free, easy-to-use platform uses photo matching technology across multiple media platforms to bring lost pets home. Just upload a photo and quickly search the largest national lost and found pet database. Let's unite to reunite, because every lost pet deserves to find their way home. Register today at lovelost.com.
An already exhaustive search is ramping up in the Dominican Republic for that missing student, Sudixa Kanunki. The usually idyllic oceanside setting of Punta Cana in the Dominican Republic is at the heart of intense police activity. The FBI is on the scene as local law enforcement searches for the 20-year-old with drones and helicopters. Police dogs have gone up and down the beach looking for any sign of her. Kanunki has been missing now for nearly 7 days. It was around this time last week when she was getting ready for a night out, partying with her friends. Surveillance footage shows her back at her resort with a group of friends at about 4 a.m. Thursday morning last week. We see them all heading to the beach with a couple of men that they had just met during this trip. Kanunke is seen walking arm in arm with one of those men, a 24-year-old from Iowa named Joseph Ribe. He was the last person to spend time with Kanunke, saying they went for a swim in the ocean once everyone else went back to the hotel. Now, several news outlets have reported today that Ribe has been identified as a person of interest. The sheriff's office in Loudoun County, where Kanunke and her family live, say not so fast. They say Kanunke's disappearance is not being treated as a criminal investigation, so therefore Ribe is not considered a person of interest or a suspect at this time. Now, the president of the Dominican Republic thinks Kanunke may have been involved in an accident, and he has ordered a, quote, special search operation in the ocean. Our next guest spent years diving for the FBI and established their underwater forensic program. Bobby Chacon joins us again. Bobby, welcome back to the show. Although it's on an awful story, what would divers look for in the ocean? There are strong currents there.
That's right, Elizabeth. And normally you won't put divers in the water unless you have a finite area to search. So unless you've narrowed it down to an area where you think this person may be. And as you've seen some of these helicopter shots, the water there is crystal clear. You can actually search from the air with those drones you mentioned and with those helicopters you saw on your shot there, how crystal clear that water is. So if there's a body down there, you could probably see it. The thing you want to know is where it could have drifted to. You want to know the prevailing winds, the prevailing currents in that area, and so where that body might have drifted. Because over a number of days, that body's going to move. You're not in a lake, you're not in a river. The body's going to move, and so you want to know which way it's moving, and then you want to concentrate your searches in that direction.
The waters in this area can get rough, even though it looks pristine and beautiful in this video and these pictures that we're showing you. 4 tourists were just swept away and drowned 2 months ago, right around this area. It was worth saying, though, authorities recovered their bodies soon afterwards. They have not found hers.
That's right. That's what's strange about this is that her body has not surfaced yet and drifted either to the shore, either up or down that beach somewhere. So that is unusual to go this long and not. And like you said, there's a very recent example of just several weeks ago of that happening and the bodies being located. So you're doing 2 parallel investigations. You're doing one on the drowning and one on the possible foul play, and both are kind of moving in the same direction. The interviews with that young man from Iowa are crucial, not only on the foul play side, but on the search side. I want to know, what was she wearing? Where was she in the water exactly? How far out she was, and things like that, because that will all determine if she went under a rogue wave. When and where it happened is crucial. The last known spot is going to be your starting point. From where you start your search.
This 24-year-old man says that he got out of the water, that he was feeling sick, that he'd had too much to drink, and that he eventually passed out on the beach. Apparently, the woman's sarong was found on a lounge chair, but there were no signs of a struggle of any kind. What do you make of that?
Well, I mean, look, the physical evidence, or lack thereof, but the physical evidence that you do see, like you said, her sarong not ripped. If it's not ripped or anything like that, and there's no overturned furniture with blood on it or anything like that, it matches his story in that they were together in the wave. They were both heavily drinking that night. And she got knocked by a wave. They both got knocked by a wave. He was able to probably hands and knees drag himself out of the water, but he was so inebriated that he could barely get to a lounge chair to fall asleep or pass out, and then he wasn't thinking about her. I mean, that's his story. I'm saying not that that's what happened, but his story does match up with what we know so far. Until we come across something else that will indicate foul play, that's what you have to go on. So they're smart to keep the dogs on the beach and extend up and down the beach, keep the drones going, keep the helicopters up. Keep the boats in the water. It's a little too soon to have divers in the water because you don't know exact spot. But you can use boat-towed sonar, which looks very far out, and you can analyze that sonar data. So there are a lot of things you can do to be looking for her in the water now, while the possible criminal investigation is going along on land, talking to the people they were with that night and that kind of stuff.
The FBI is now on the case, and I'm just curious, given all your experience not just in the FBI, but as an FBI diver. Is it possible if she drowned that we will never find her body? You know,
unfortunately, that is possible. And when you're talking about the ocean like this, you have the Atlantic Ocean to the north, you have the Caribbean Sea to the south. So you have, two huge bodies of water amassing there, and you have this kind of strait between Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico. So you do have areas where that body could be, drift out to sea under the water. And quite frankly, in warmer Caribbean waters, the sea life is very active, and a human body breaks down in the seawater, and it can be consumed often by sea life. It could be that we never find her.
Oh, it's just so heartbreaking for the Kananke family. This comes as, we've got tens of thousands of American kids heading down to the Dominican Republic, the Bahamas, all these places for spring break. There's a real message here. She was on spring break with some friends of hers from the University of Pittsburgh. You've got to be careful on these trips, and you've got to be careful when you've been drinking.
Yeah, I hate to sound like the old man, the grandfather of the crowd, but nothing usually happens good after midnight, or when you're drinking heavily, especially in the water. I know how powerful the ocean can be. It's not a place to fool around. And, it's just to be careful. Don't leave your group. When you're in a group, stay in a group. If you want to, pair off, don't go in the water. And I'm talking only from the diver's perspective. Stay out of the water at night. It's a dangerous place, particularly if you're alone or just with one or two other people. But be wary of your surroundings, as always.
Sudisa Kananke was a pre-med student at the University of Pittsburgh, her whole life ahead of her. This is so awful for her family right now. Bobby Chacon, thanks again for joining us.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
Coming up, 15 states, 2 deaths, hundreds of cases. The measles outbreak is spreading across the country, and some doctors say that Trump's health secretary, RFK Jr., is sending the wrong message. I'll talk to one of them next.
When a parent sees their child smile, they see hope. Aleem hoped that his son Rajib would have an easier life than he had. You see, Rajib, just like his father, was born with a cleft. But thanks to Smile Train, both father and son received free, life-changing surgeries, transforming their smiles into symbols of hope. To learn more and support the global cleft community, visit smiletrain.org/learn. Smile Train, changing the world one smile at a time.
Let's talk LDL. AKA bad cholesterol. The higher your LDL cholesterol, the higher your risk of a heart attack or stroke. Your health matters. Know your number. Talk to your doctor and get your cholesterol checked. And learn how to help lower your LDL bad cholesterol. Because your health is in your hands. Find out more at heart.org/LDL.
Every day, women like me go to the doctor for annual checkups for conditions like breast cancer. Early detection saved my life. But women with disabilities face a cruel reality: inaccessible medical facilities and equipment.
I went to a doctor's office I was told was accessible, but when I got there, I couldn't get through the front door.
Our veterans deserve better. Help PVA fight for access at pva.org.
Heads up, athletes, coaches, and parents. Play for life, not just points. Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, or HCM, is the leading cause of sudden cardiac death, especially in black athletes in sports like football or basketball. If you feel shortness of breath, chest pain, and fatigue, or have a family history of HCM, talk to your doctor. Don't let HCM bench you for good. Learn how to stay in the game at heart.org/HCM student athlete. Your heart, your health, your move.
One of the most contagious viruses on planet Earth is making a comeback and showing no signs of stopping. And it's fueling a big debate now surrounding vaccines and personal freedom. What started as a small outbreak in a Mennonite community in West Texas has now spread to 14 other states, and more than 280 people have been infected, largely in Texas and New Mexico. So what's leading to the spread of measles? Health officials in Texas say it's tied to communities with low vaccine rates, like the Mennonites. Of the 2 reported deaths so far, one was a 6-year-old girl in Texas, a Mennonite, who was unvaccinated. Her father says he has no regrets about that. He told The Atlantic magazine the vaccination has stuff we don't trust. He went on to say that his daughter's death was God's will. Everybody dies, he said. His hesitancy and his choice not to get vaccinated is supported by our new health secretary, Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
We should have transparency. We should have informed choice. But if people don't want it, the government shouldn't force them to do it. There are adverse events from the vaccine. It does cause deaths every year. It causes all the illnesses that measles itself causes, encephalitis and blindness, etc. And so people ought to be able to make that choice for themselves. And what we need to do is give them the best information and encourage them to vaccinate. The vaccine does stop the spread of the disease.
All right, RFK is right. The vaccine does stop the spread of the disease. But with due respect to him, he's dead wrong on almost everything else he said right there, at least according to the health agency he himself oversees. The CDC says while the vaccine can have side effects, they are typically mild and go away on their own. And the National Institute of Health reports 0 deaths are tied to the vaccine in healthy people. There are rare cases of deaths among children who are immunocompromised, but it's not recommended that those children get the vaccine. My next guest agrees that the best way to prevent measles is through vaccination, and he would know. In 2019, Dr. Neil Vora was with the CDC responding to a measles outbreak in New York City, an outbreak that primarily impacted unvaccinated members of Orthodox Jewish communities. Dr. Neil Vora joins me now. He's the executive director of Preventing Pandemics at The Source. It's a coalition of health groups working to prevent the spread of viruses. Doctor, it's great to have you here. All right, so this outbreak is like the one you handled in New York. It started in a community in Texas where vaccine rates are low. How do you compare the outbreak we're seeing now to what you saw in New York?
I'm very concerned about this outbreak. There are hundreds of cases. It's spreading to multiple states. There's already been 2 deaths. These are the first measles deaths that the country has experienced in a decade. And it underscores that the best way to prevent measles is through vaccination. This is a very safe, very effective vaccine. We've had it for decades, and we know that it works.
Measles is incredibly contagious with an infection rate of 90% if you're not vaccinated. I mean, you can catch this measles from someone who was in a room and then left that room, and 2 hours later, you enter that same room. That's how contagious this virus is.
Absolutely. That's why measles spread so quickly. It's one of the most contagious infectious diseases we know. It can even be spread before people have any symptoms of measles. And like you're saying, after a person leaves a room, the virus can still be hanging in the air, getting people sick. which is why it's so important that we all use the shield that we have available to us, which is the measles vaccine. You know, over 100,000 people around the world still die of measles every year. And that's because in other parts of the world, they don't have access to the measles vaccine like we do in the U.S. But we have vaccines here, and people should be getting vaccinated.
So then what's your reaction when you see our own Director of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., on national television last night saying, it's up to you, you choose, the vaccine kills people every year, but you choose?
Here's the thing. The vaccine is a common sense issue. You know, if you look at kindergarten-aged children around the whole country, over 90% are properly covered for the measles vaccine. That means that most parents understand that getting the vaccine makes sense. It's common sense. And I think common sense needs to prevail here. We need to be getting that vaccine into the arms of these kids who are at risk.
How did you convince people in these very sheltered, sort of isolated communities of Orthodox Jewish people to vaccinate themselves when you handled the outbreak here in New York City?
Well, it was a really sad situation. You know, what we were seeing in that particular community in New York City was the result of years and years of an intentional spread of incorrect information in that community. And that led parents to not get their kids vaccinated or to under-vaccinate their kids, which is why we saw the biggest outbreak of measles in the United States since 1992 at that time. And so what we did was engage with the community. We had trusted members of the community spread correct information. Sadly, incorrect information spreads faster than correct information. And so those community advisors really were important.
RFK did say vaccines are the best way to prevent measles, but then he went on to promote cod liver oil and a healthy diet to prevent getting infected with measles instead of the vaccine. It's worth noting that doctors in Texas say the infected kids all were well fed, and the Mennonite community has long used home remedies for every sort of thing, and the Mennonite community is where this measles outbreak began.
You know, I'm not sure exactly why cod liver oil is being promoted. What we do know is that in other parts of the world where there isn't as good nutrition, vitamin A is very important for helping those children recover from measles. But we also know that vitamin A doesn't prevent measles. And in the U.S., we have very good nutrition in most children, or at least decent nutrition compared to other parts of the world. And so vitamin A use really should be restricted to doctors in hospital settings for those children who really need it. Otherwise, there is a risk of getting toxicity from vitamin A. It's a fat-soluble vitamin, and so there's an increased risk that the body can't get rid of it if people take too much of the vitamin A. And so listen to your doctor, get vaccinated.
All right, so once again, vitamin A, good for treating measles, does nothing to prevent you from getting measles. Dr. Vora, great to have you on the show. Really appreciate your expertise. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, coming up for us, Chris Cuomo continues his conversation tonight with Tucker Carlson. Tucker thinks President Trump isn't going far enough with immigration in this country. In fact, Tucker thinks he has a better plan. Chris will be here to explain in a moment.
Mommy, can I sit in the front seat just this one time? Please, please, please.
No, not yet.
But why?
Because I love you, and you're just not ready yet. Now, get in the back so I can get you in your car seat, please.
Putting your kids in the right seat for their age and size is an act of love. Check that your kids are in the right seat at NHTSA.gov/the right seat. Love protects. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
When the game is on the line, championship teams know the game plan. They communicate and work together to win. We all need a game plan to protect ourselves online. Talk to family and friends so they know how to stay safe too. Create strong passwords, turn on multi-factor authentication, update software, and recognize and report phishing, because online safety is not something you want to fumble. Get more game-winning tips at CISA.gov/secure our world. Then share them with family and friends.
We asked parents who adopted teens to share their journey.
When I met both of them, it was like my missing pieces were found. Like it was just like an instant, these are my kids. If you're considering adopting a teen, just do it. Kids need families. I don't care the age. Everybody deserves a family.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. Visit adoptuskids.org to learn more. A message brought to you by Adopt US Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council.
Plan on flying? It's time to upgrade to a real ID. Because in order to board domestic flights, your driver's license or state-issued ID must be a real ID, or you'll need another acceptable form of identification. So don't wait. Find out how to get your real ID at tsa.gov/real ID. That's tsa.gov/real ID. Or visit your local DMV. And then you'll be cleared for takeoff.
My name is DeMar Hamlin. I play for the Buffalo Bills, and I play safety. CPR saved my life. I've teamed up with the American Heart Association as a national ambassador to help create a nation of lifesavers, turning bystanders into lifesavers through CPR education and access to AEDs. Nearly 3 out of 4 cardiac arrests that don't happen in hospitals happen in homes. Join me to ensure everyone has the chance to live longer, healthier lives. Visit heart.org/nation.
At National Geographic Society, we believe in the power of wonder. It drives us to explore, pushes us to see the world differently, moves us to action. And we believe that today, wonder is more essential than ever. Wow. That's why we're supporting a new generation of explorers to ask big questions, make breakthroughs, and bring the future closer. Wonder awaits. Will you join us? Visit natgeo.org/wonder.
This is NewsNation with a trust rating higher than any of our competitors. NewsNation is proud to be America's fastest growing cable news network. See for yourself at joinnn.com.
The key to unlock the next breakthrough in cancer research could be sitting in your driveway. Stand Up to Cancer's vehicle donation program makes it easy to turn your unwanted vehicle into funding to support innovative cancer research. So when you're looking to get rid of your old car, truck, motorcycle, RV, or boat, why not donate it to Stand Up to Cancer? You can be a driving force in cancer research. Donate your car today. Visit standuptocancer.org/cars to learn more.
The more you listen to your kids, the closer you'll be. So we asked kids, what do you want your parents to hear?
I feel sometimes that I'm not listened to. I would just want you to listen to me more often and evaluate situations with me and lead me towards success.
Listening is a form of love. Find resources to help you support your kids and their emotional well-being at sounditouttogether.org. That's sounditouttogether.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and Pivotal.
President Donald Trump. It's his highest rated issue right now. It's something he campaigned hard on. Well, it was a topic that Chris Cuomo and Tucker Carlson were discussing, and we'll see it tonight. Tucker says Trump isn't doing enough when it comes to cracking down on immigration. In fact, he thinks America needs to shut down immigration completely for a time so that the people who are already here can assimilate and unite. He says no more immigrants, period, none. At least that's what he told Chris Cuomo. Am I getting it right?
It looks like this point was making me tear my hair out, but I really think it's just head. I think that this is one of the most basic areas of disagreement. I believe that immigration is part of the lifeblood and the historicity